Good afternoon. On April the 14th at approximately 5:45 p.m., the York-Poquoson Sheriff's Office responded to calls for service of an individual in the Claremont Apartments in York County that was brandishing a firearm. We originally got a call from a family member who had been alerted by another family member that this individual just didn't seem to be right. That was the first call that we got. After that, we got calls from several of the residents out there who actually were victims of the gun being pointed at them. We even had one person claim that the laser sight that we later found on the firearm, she actually had the laser go across her face. So the gun was actually pointed at her head at some point. So when we arrived, there was a description of a vehicle, a gold Honda, that this individual was seated in across from building 401 in the Claremont Apartments. Deputies, when they arrived, observed this individual in the car, and he still had the handgun in his lap. So the deputies backed off. Multiple deputies arrived on scene and cordoned off the area and began trying to talk to this individual. We even tried to talk with him at one point with a relative who was FaceTiming live with this individual in the car, trying to get him to leave the gun in the car and get out of the vehicle. The deputy actually witnessed him crank one round out of the gun, which we later found in the floorboard of the vehicle. So it was a live rounds. There was approximately 23 rounds that were later found in this gun that he had. It was a 9mm pistol with an extended magazine. So we continued to negotiate with the individual, asking him to come out. He never responded verbally. He pointed the gun several times around in different directions. He finally exited the vehicle with the firearm and his cell phone in one hand, began waving the firearm around, and as I'm going to show you in just a moment in a video, he actually pointed it in the direction of deputies. And when he did that, one of my deputies who was on scene with one of our issued rifles fired 3 rounds. 2 of the rounds struck the individual, and once he went down, deputies moved in, secured the firearm that he had, and we immediately began first aid. We had also contacted Fire and Life Safety with the York Fire Department. They had a medic that was staged at times, so they were basically there. So we were able to not only provide first aid from the deputies, but the medics were on scene almost immediately as well. So what I'm going to show you now is an overhead. This is the apartment complex, an overhead view. Arcadia Loop is where this occurred. If you bring up the second picture.
Sheriff, stop, please. Can we
Go
show
back.
this? Can we show this?
Yes.
Yes, you
Okay.
show this.
Sorry.
Ready to proceed?
Yeah, go ahead. This is the 400 block of Arcadia Loop. The red circle is where suspect was sitting in the vehicle. The vehicle was back in at the time. This is the position where the York deputy was that fired the rounds. We had another vehicle here and vehicle back here as well. And that's the location that everyone was while we were negotiating with this individual, trying to get him to come out of the vehicle. He came out of the vehicle on the passenger side with the firearm and his cell phone. He put the cell phone down at one point and picked that back up, but he never did relinquish the firearm and waved it around, raised it in the air multiple times. Never did respond verbally to anything that we said. So at this point, unless you've got some questions about what I'm showing you here, is when I'm going to ask you not to film this, what we're getting ready to show you, which is a couple of, you're going to see a still shot initially, and what you're going to see in the still shot is his arm fully extended. Now it's a little blurry because you all know more about pixelation than I do, but when you try to enhance a lot of these videos, it gets a little fuzzy, so there's going to be a few seconds of video to further show you what you're seeing in the first picture. So if you want to bring up that.
Wait, let's.
Can
Can we do some questions?
Mm-hmm.
How long were you speaking with this individual? We talked to some folks who said it was a while that you all were trying to negotiate with them.
It was every bit of 10 to 15 minutes where we were actually talking with him in the vehicle and then outside of the vehicle. So between 10 and 15 minutes.
Did you have a sense of what the relative was trying to communicate to him through the live FaceTime?
They were trying to get him to put the gun down and come out of the vehicle. They were working with us trying to resolve the situation.
Can you
So-
give age and current condition?
He's 16 years old, and he's still in the hospital right now. And we've been checking on him several times a day, and we haven't gotten an update this morning, but he's still in ICU in the hospital.
You say critical condition, or?
I would say that, yes.
He was struck twice.
Well, actually, the first one was more of a grazing wound. It was the wound he was struck just here is the wound that's caused him to have the surgery and be in the condition that he's in.
In like the trunk of his body?
Yes.
Okay.
On the right side? Pointing to the right side.
I don't remember if it was left or right, based on where he was standing.
So one deputy fired 3 shots.
Yes.
2 shots struck the 16.
Yes.
What's the status of that deputy?
He is on administrative leave with pay at this point in time.
Are state police assisting?
No.
Was the 16-year-old or the 16-year-old's parent or parents known to your department for any reason in the past?
No, we had not had any other issues with him as far as any contact between the York-Poquoson Sheriff's Office and his family. I don't know how long he's lived here. He was a resident of another city before coming up here, but we haven't had any contact with him. Our school resource officer was aware of him because he goes to York County Schools.
Was he a resident at 401 Arcadia?
He was a resident of that apartment complex, yes.
Was anyone else in the car with him?
No,
Which school does he attend?
I can't tell you that right now.
Was the vehicle locked the whole time?
No.
They were trying to get did deputies try to open it?
No, when they first approached the vehicle, they could see him with the firearm in his hand in the vehicle, and they backed up immediately.
He was in the driver's seat?
He was in the passenger seat.
There was a round hole in the rear passenger quarter panel. Was that the 3rd bullet?
Could be. The investigation is still ongoing as to the physical evidence.
Sir, obviously it is a little startling to hear that it was a juvenile. I think that caught all of our attention. Do you want to address anything about the response? As
Well,
they
I mean,
came
that's
about?
an epidemic that all of us on the Peninsula and Hampton Roads have been dealing with in law enforcement, is the fact that we're dealing with younger people involved with firearms on a more regular basis now. So it's probably years ago in my career I would have said it's really rare, but you all report this on a regular basis, and it's sadly becoming more and more common on a regular basis that young people are getting their hands on these firearms. And I think a lot of it is something that all of the law enforcement agencies on the peninsula talk about all the time, is larcenies from vehicles. It hasn't been that long ago that I was talking to a lot of you about larcenies from vehicles, and I had found out right after I became the sheriff that 93% of our stolen guns come out of unlocked cars. So if you extrapolate that across Hampton Roads, you can understand how some of these stories that we're talking about right now occur.
Was the 16-year-old's gun stolen?
We don't know. It has not showed up stolen yet. We are still investigating the origins of that gun.
You don't know who's it's registered
No,
to or if it's
not yet,
registered?
no.
You don't believe it belongs to a family member that maybe he was staying with there, or?
We're confident that it did not belong to the family.
The deputy that fired the gun he was pointing the gun in the direction of some deputies, is that correct?
Yes.
And so the deputy that fired the gun, was it pointed at him or other deputy?
It had pointed in his direction at one point in time, but at the time of the shot, he was pointing the gun in the direction of other deputies.
I know you said the team was pointing the gun at residents at the complex. Can you confirm if he pointed the gun at any children in the playground? That's what one neighbor told us.
The woman that I told you that said that the laser beam came across her face, she had at least 4 children on the playground out there, and she was concerned, was part of her statement to us, that they were going to be shot.
What do you think the potential was for much more tragedy?
Well, there was a lot of people out, especially with those kids on the playground, so the potential for a lot more violence was there, clearly.
How long has the deputy been on duty? I mean, working for the sheriff's office?
This deputy has been working for us a little over a year. He came to us from another law enforcement agency.
Can you say where he came from?
No, I'm not going to disclose that right now.
How many years of experience total would you say he had?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 5, I believe.
And did you say the 16-year-old's gun was fully loaded?
He had access to 23 rounds between what was in the magazine of the gun and the extended magazine. There was 23 rounds.
So the extended magazine means it was an illegal configuration?
It was an extended magazine, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Is he facing any charges?
I'm sorry?
Is he facing any charges?
We will be consulting with the Commonwealth Attorney about potential criminal charges, yes.
Would you say he's expected to recover?
I would say, based on the conversations our investigators are having with the hospital staff, that they are optimistic that he is going to recover, yes. And I think a lot of that probably could be due to the quick reaction of at least 2 of my deputies on scene that rendered first aid immediately, and the fact that we had pre-staged a medic unit near the apartment complex, so we didn't have to wait an extended period of time for him to get EMS personnel on scene.
So he's talking and stuff like that? Or?
As far as I know, he hasn't said anything. We have certainly made no attempts to talk to him since he went to the hospital.
Well, I mean, like, is he conscious and he, talking to his?
That part, I have no
giving
idea.
statements, but-
I don't know that status.
Have you been in contact with his parents? I'm not sure if his parents are in the picture or if he's living with like another family member.
I spoke to his mother and his stepfather just before I came into this conference, and we are working on trying to arrange their schedule to sit down and meet with me and have me answer some of their questions.
Do they both live at the address?
They both live together, yes, in that.
401.
In the complex.
Okay.
So the 16-year-old lives there as well, lives with them?
Yes.